Welcome everyone to our Thursday evening class. This is our third class in a series on Ken Wapnick's 50 Miracle Principles. We'll be looking at, finally, looking at Principle 1 this evening, if all goes well. As an opening meditation, my sound okay, by the way? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So my our opening meditation, I wanted to look at lesson 79 in the workbook. This is on page 141, lesson 79 in the workbook. And 79 and 80, I remember telling this gentleman, I think his mother is one of those unusual cases like Bruce Rawls, where the guy's mother, he was a Native American Indian, and his mother was doing the course, and she introduced A Course in Miracles to him. And he was asking me what's a good place to go as a beginning to see what the course is all about. And I always thought lesson 79 and 80 were a really, really good place to start. We might not like it, we might disagree with it, but I thought it was a really succinct place where Jesus was really, 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 really emphatic that there's only one problem and there's only one solution. There's only one problem in spite of all the endless seeming problems we have as bodies in the world. There's only one problem underlying all that: the belief in separation. Not even separation, it's just our believing in it. Seems like a subtle difference, but when you get in touch with it, it's not so subtle. Separation never happened. It's just we got ourselves to believe it did. And then the only way out is to stop, as he says at the end of lesson 80, is to, and he just kind of throws it in there. He doesn't really explain it. At the end of lesson 80, he says, let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Every grievance I have insists that I'm upset for the reason I think, that I know where the problem is. And if Jesus just would listen to me, I would tell him where the problem is, and then he'd be able to fix it. And Jesus is like, no, that's never, ever the problem. So lesson 79 is an opening meditation. I wanted to paragraph 1, 2, 6, and 10. So Dave Dempsey, if you would read paragraph 1 and then Beth, if you would read paragraph 2, and then Stephen, if you would read paragraph 6, and then finally Bruce Brickman, if you would read paragraph 10. You guys got your paragraphs?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it.
Lesson 79. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. A problem cannot be solved if you do not know what it is. Even if it is really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not have recognized that it has been solved. This is the situation of the world. The problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. Yet the solution is not recognized because the problem is not recognized.
Everyone in this world seems to have his own special problems, yet they are all the same and must be recognized as one if the one solution that solves them all is to be accepted. Who can see that a problem has been solved if he thinks the problem is something else? Even if he is given the answer, he cannot see its relevance.
Paragraph 6. All this complexity is but a desperate attempt not to recognize the problem and therefore to let it be resolved. If you could recognize that your only problem is separation, no matter what form it takes, you could accept the answer because you would see its relevance. Perceiving the underlying constancy in all the problems that seem to confront you, you would understand that you would have the means to solve them all. And you would use the means because you recognize the problem.
Not deceived by the form of problems today. Whenever any difficulty seems to rise, tell yourself quickly, Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Then try to suspend all judgment about what the problem is. If possible, close your eyes for a moment and ask what it is. You'll be heard and you will be answered.
All righty, thanks. And we'll get quiet for a little bit, close our eyes and see if that happens. And gently come back with the answer. Keep the answer. Any thoughts or comments on any of that? If you came in a little bit late, we were reading lesson 79, which Ken mentions in the reading today. Any thoughts, any questions, any comments? I think Stephen slipped up and said, therefore, to let it be resolved. Did I miss that? Oh, Maya heard it.
I don't know, maybe I did. We'll catch the replay and talk about it at a different time. And I
Anyway.
hope I was wrong.
He was just using not in two places, not to recognize the problem and therefore to let it not be resolved.
Cool.
He meant not.
Thank you for your help with that. I did have a comment. By what we once called coincidence, yesterday I read in detail, might have been the day before, the problem and the answer. And if you put these two, two workbook lessons with the problem and the answer, and then take it to setting the goal, for me, if I do that and understand as best as possible, I'm on my way to peace and truth and light. Thank you.
It's kind of like the 3 steps of forgiveness. Sort of kind of. Yeah, it's good. Thanks, Stephen. Susie, go ahead.
So with this encouragement, if you ask, I will answer. Sometimes I struggle with that because sometimes I think the answer is just coming through my own head and it might not be the answer of the Holy Spirit. And so then I just start all this self-doubt, and I'm just wondering, is there a trick or a sure way of knowing when you get an answer from the Holy Spirit?
Probably a few. You ready?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Okay. One of the tests to see is, does it include everybody? Or am I leaving out my favorite political bad guy? Can I honestly say I'm including everybody? Family, friends, enemies, Putin, whoever it is that we might be pointing a finger at today. Am I leaving anybody out? So that's one good way. And once again, that's not to beat ourselves up. That's just to say, realize that we're still hanging on to dividing the sonship and keeping a few people from going to heaven with us. That's one of the tests for me is, who do I not want to go to heaven with?
Mm,
Does this answer apply to them too? Another way of looking at it, I think, is, and I think each of us on the screen probably have our own favorite way of figuring that out, is if there's any doubt at all, then I haven't quite got to that third step of forgiveness. I haven't got quite to that holy instant that Beth was talking about last week. Holy instant really is kind of like the third step of forgiveness, and it does not include any doubt. And once again, that's not to beat myself up because I'm doubting. But when we actually get to that awareness inside of us, there's very little doubt that what Jesus is saying is pretty real. That not only am I not upset for the reason I think it's not the other guy's fault, but like I'm still the son of God too. We're all still the son of God. Other places, yeah, so it's different ways to word that. Anybody else have any? Lynn, Corona, you got any that you use different than those?
Well, I no longer have a question.
That's good.
I'm at peace. I no longer have a question.
mhm.
It's solved. It's already solved.
Well, that's a big catch-all right there. You know, if you just, I mean, I get that now. It's like, yeah, if it's solved, you don't have a question. So why are you even doubting what you hear? Means you're still questioning. So I get that. Yeah.
Well, for me, the answer isn't in any form. It's like not words. It's just, I no longer have a question. I don't expect to be hearing, Jesus or the Holy Spirit say, here's your answer. And it's, it's not in words. It's peace. It's completion. It's no longer doubting. I think Tim said that.
I think that's where I get tripped up is I'm looking for words.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
I ask a specific question like, why can't I get this? Or why is this so difficult? Or how do I love everybody as my brother? And I'm looking for answers in words. And I guess I have to rethink that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Lynn. Jane, then Bruce Brickman.
One of the ways I think that's applicable to what you're asking is that if what you're hearing, you seem to be hearing, or if you know it's true, is if you don't have any fear, you just have peace. And if you have any fear, then you know that that the answer isn't true. And I look at that a lot, and it actually is quoted. You can look at it sometime on page 297. It shows you that if we really have learned what Lynn has of, we don't have to ask any questions anymore. We know the answer. We know that if we're in conflict, we're talking with the ego. But if we're at peace, we're with the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit only asks us to look for someone who is seeking love or to express love. And the only answer to both of those is expressing love. So try to just always remember that. And please include yourself too, because that's probably one of the most important parts. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Go ahead, Bruce.
I was listening to Ken Wapnick on Holy Instant, and Jesus talks about the Holy Instant, and he says that Ken Wapnick, as he explains, he says he doesn't expect you not to have any judgments or doubts. But what he asks is not to keep them. When you go into the holy instant, sometimes we're kicking and screaming. But these type of doubts and judgments, Jesus understands, just don't keep them, give them to him. He stands in the holy instant as clear as you can see him. And, you know, like we just had in the meditation, close your eyes and recognize him. And don't play on yourself that you're not going to have doubts and judgments, because you are, but don't keep them. Let him happen. And once you start to let go, then you might start to get that peace, you know. That's helped me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. And then sort of one of the questions out of what Bruce was saying was, well, then how do I get rid of a doubt? How do I let go of this doubt? Couple answers to that. First of all, I was thinking, back up a little bit. After I've had a pretty clean, clear, holy instant. It's hard to go back to believing that the way I'm feeling. It's easier for me to know that I haven't quite got there yet. There's still doubt involved. There's still questioning involved. There's still finger pointing involved. I'm still upset at somebody for something. All that stuff's involved. But once I have a clear and clean holy instant, it's like I know what that feels like, and I know I'm not there yet. Once again, that's not to beat myself up, but I just got more work to do. I got to keep leaning into Jesus, going, I know I'm still hanging on here. I don't know what you do. I don't know what your magic is, what your miracle is, but whatever it is that you do, please help me. And it was a really interesting, subtle breakdown on Tuesday. I thought at one point we were reading about parents and children, but Ken says, don't ask, and this kind of tripped us up. A lot of us, actually, me included, don't ask Jesus to help you let go of your baggage. Don't ask Jesus to help you let go of your doubt, but help you to look at that you're actually, in one sense, you're choosing to help you see that we're choosing to identify with this baggage that isn't really us. And he can show us that. Because he can't really force us to let go of something we're hanging on to. We're the ones that have to open our hands up and let go of it. But first, we have to recognize we've got this death grip on doubt. First, we have to recognize we have this death grip on our baggage. And then it's like, do I want to hang on to this, or do I want to let it go? If it was possible for me to let go of this doubt, to let go of this baggage, to let go of this incessant finger pointing, would I be willing to do it? And it's not our job to, it's really Jesus and the Holy Spirit's job to help us see we actually have a choice. I think that's what we were looking at on Tuesday. And it seems like kind of like a nitpicky thing, but I don't think it's that nitpicky because a lot of us got pretty crazy about it, me included. Don't ask Jesus to help you let go of your doubt. We're the ones hanging on to it. Ask us to help us see that we have a choice whether we want to lay it down or not, whatever that experience looks like, whatever that feels like. So when doubt creeps in and we're still not certain we're having a holy instant, ask Jesus to help you continue to see that we might be the ones that are hanging on to it, or in whatever words work. Just say help, for God's sake. Help me, Jesus, help. I'm still crazy. I'm still feeling the doubt. I'm still finger pointing. I know I'm not there yet. And just stay with that. Stay with that till it changes. And it will change, which is why we don't, on a good ego day, we don't want to stay with that. Yeah. Erica, go ahead.
That's such a good analogy about, holding that pen. Because I think, based on my experience this week, I don't have to let go of the pen, like I don't have to open my hand and let it go. I need to become aware that it's me who is holding it and making pressure on it, and seeing myself, telling myself I cannot let it go. So I become aware of that. And at some point, it's like, what am I doing? Good.
That's
Yeah.
good. So next time you're doubting, Susie, call Erica and she'll walk you through that. That's good. Thanks, Erica. Jane.
And another thing that's so perfect for us right now is the Course tells us to choose a miracle. Choose a miracle instead of the conflict that's going on in our mind. And that miracle guides you back to the right perception of the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into what we never got to on last week, page 8 in the book. He's really, and it's one of those things that he's really emphatic about in the manual for teachers, that in this process of waking up, in this process of realizing we don't have to actually have a death grip on our doubt, we really need the Holy Spirit's help to do this. Chapter 5, he's real adamant. We don't have to understand how it works, but we really have to ask the Holy Spirit for help, whatever that looks like, whatever that feels like. And then as we do that, we'll begin to realize how we're doubting that help, how we're doubting it can even work, and how long have we been doing this, and how much longer do I have to do it, and all that kind of stuff keeps coming up. I think it's a not so subtle attempt on our part to hang on to trying to control the situation, meaning control the doubt. Somehow I'm going to transcend the doubt all by myself or something like that. I don't know. It's definitely not leaving the Holy Spirit. It's definitely leaving the Holy Spirit out. And that's what he's talking about on page 8 at the top, at least my page 8. He says, would you say, in order to be open to this forgiveness, this process, and to understand this forgiveness, that you would really have to be asking the Holy Spirit for help all the time? Well, especially, if we're hanging on to doubt or a problem. Yes, A Course in Miracles makes it very clear that it is impossible to truly forgive someone without the Holy Spirit's help, because our egos are so strongly entrenched in our minds. This is really saying that our investment in maintaining the illusion of separation, the illusion of believing in, and of guilt is so entrenched in our minds that it's almost impossible, if not completely impossible, to actually change our minds without outside help. That outside help in this case is the Holy Spirit, of course, and it's really inside help. As the Course frequently quotes from the Gospels, of ourselves we can do nothing. So 2 things: keep at it and don't try to do it ourselves. In fact, that kind of like powerlessness about not being able to get rid of the doubt is really a great turning point for a lot of us in this process, that Holy Spirit, you got to help me see something else here, because all I'm seeing is doubt and guilt and uncertainty. And it's all, doubt's a big word. It should be up here with all this stuff. We doubt who we truly are. That's all doubt is me. I got this death grip on this thing that's not even, there's nothing in my hand. I just need to open my hand up and realize there's nothing in there. I've got a death grip on doubt. I've got a death grip on guilt. I got a death grip on separation, and there's nothing in there. It's just nothing in there. So whatever helps, try it. Especially Holy Spirit. Don't leave him out. Yeah. Anybody else? Go ahead, Oris.
Well, for myself, I can honestly say I've never heard the voice of Jesus, never heard any directions. I don't think he gives directions. especially if he's telling me to quote unquote do something, because I think I've learned from the Course, we're not supposed to do anything. We're just supposed to observe with the Holy Spirit what's going on. You know, we bring whatever's bothering us, whatever question we have, I bring it to the Holy Spirit, but then that's when I have to go like this and then drop it and don't even expect that it's going to be answered at all. That's not the purpose. We're just supposed to observe. Forgiveness does nothing, simply sits and waits and what is it? Somebody tell me that quote. Just, but I know you're not supposed to do anything. It's not going to be, you know, shall I go here? Shall I go there?
Oh, and judge is not.
And judge is not. It's going to be.
That-
I would think that if you don't hear anything, that is the Holy Spirit, right? If we're not hearing an answer, and if we want to know how to go ahead or not, I mean, we're not going to get a direction. All it is sits and waits, and judges not. The Holy Spirit will take care of it. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks. Dave Dempsey, please.
I think the best thing to do is ask for help with my level confusion. I'm never going to hear an answer from Jesus or Holy Spirit because there is no me. They're not going to talk to the illusion. Remember, he's not talking to us as a body in this book. He's talking to us as a mind. So we use the form to get to the content of the mind. And is the content the ego, or is the content of the Holy Spirit? Is it crucifixion, or is it forgiveness and peace and love? So that's what I ask for, because that gets me back to the secret dream, right? That I destroyed God and left. And that's not possible. So yeah, I think the best advice is just ask for help with the level confusion. So, and
Yeah,
that was some advice Myra gave me, and man, has it been helpful.
yeah, I was just thinking, I know that would be another good test for, is this answer that I think I'm hearing coming from Holy Spirit or not? Is this applying to Tim as a stick figure in the dream? Or is it applying to this internal place we call the decision maker, where I'm willing to look and see I've got these two choices in identity. Am I this thing, separated thing, or am I not? Am I an experience of whatever, oneness, Son of God, etc. So yeah, yeah. Is this an answer for Tim, or is this an answer for my decision maker? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Maya, were you waving before? Did you have anything?
Yeah, let's see if I can articulate it clearly. I made up a little tune 6 or 7 months ago, as I am often do, to help me remember things, right? And so I did one about the rules for decision. And one thing that just occurred to me is that whenever we think we know the question that needs resolution, then we've chosen ego, because we don't know. We're never upset for the reason we think. We think it's one thing, but it's not. And so we don't know anything. So then, you cancel your question and just say, there's got to be another way. I'm not at peace. I don't like how I feel. And I need your help. And for me, I don't usually get an answer right away. And it doesn't, like Ari said, it doesn't come in words. It's just a feeling that everything's okay. It's just that feeling of okayness without trying to bypass, like do a spiritual bypass where I say, oh, they're just calling for love. I don't need to be upset with them. And it's kind of almost like me feeling superior, my ego saying I'm superior to them, because I can just see a call for love, and I'm holier than they are. And yeah, so when I revisit the upset, might be at the next day or longer, it's like, oh, it's gone. But until that happens, I'm hopefully establishing some level of trust, at least trying to cultivate some trust in the process. Because that's what, to me, that's what it's all about. We're wanting to develop trust. And we're not in charge, and it's so hard not to try to be in charge. Thanks.
Thanks, Maya. I just thought of something, but it went away. Oh, well, it'll come back. It always does eventually. Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, as we know, there are a lot of paradox in the Course. Jesus addresses this in several places. Looking within chapter 12, he says this, Jesus says this, the Holy Spirit is invisible, but you can see the results of his presence, and through them, you will learn that he is there. And then in lesson 125, he sets us straight in a little bit. He says, his voice is closer than your hand. It is your voice to which you listen as he speaks to you. It is your word he speaks. Just a couple things. Thank you.
Yeah, my hand get pretty close. He says it's closer than this. This you can't get much closer than this. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks. All righty. Different words, same approach is always the same in content. We got to want to do it. We got to be willing to do it. And then we have to ask for help to do it. We don't have to even describe what it is. I mean, if we really knew what was happening, we wouldn't have a question to begin with. We wouldn't have doubt to begin with. This is for this course is for people who think they're doubting, who actually believe they're holding on to something. So yeah, and it works. Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Go ahead, Jane.
Ken actually says there are no questions. There really are no questions that can be answered. So I think that's really interesting. And again, we look at words, etc. But it makes sense to me when I heard Ken say that, because the Holy Spirit doesn't even know the conflict. He looks at everything without judgment, everything. So it's just, there really aren't any questions. It's more of a turning over, like Lynn was speaking of, and just knowing that the true answer will be love, or expending love to somebody else and yourself. And I think what Tim said is so important, is that we have to wish it for everybody. We cannot leave one being out, and we especially can't leave ourselves out. So just be okay with your doubt. Don't judge it. And eventually it will subside too, just like the ego gets lesser and lesser and lesser as we put that trust in that the Course is asking us to do. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Jane. Let's actually look at the first miracle principle, because it could be referred to as there's no order of difficulty and doubt. All doubt's coming from the same place. All doubt is coming from the same place. So I'm on page 9, principle 1. Rosemary, you want to read that first paragraph, please? Or 2, actually.
Yes, sure.
Heard it.
The question and answer?
Well, there's not a question. It's just principle 1. There is no order of difficulty. I'm on my book's page 9. I don't know what it might be in yours.
Oh, God.
It's
You
page
know,
11. It's page 11.
Is
in
it
the
really?
Old books.
Oh my God.
This is the book.
Oh
I got
my God. You got
This is
one.
really old. This is a first edition.
Wow.
This is from Roscoe.
This is after the questions in the first section. It actually says principle 1.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, it's page 13. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay, just the first two paragraphs?
Yeah, sure.
Kind of long, but okay. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They're all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. While I said that these are not my favorite sections, I think that the first principle really is a gem. It is one of the most important statements in the whole book, and I think Jesus thinks so too, because it's a principle that occurs over and over again in all three books in many different forms. If we could thoroughly understand what it means, that there's no order of difficulty in miracles, we would understand everything else in this book, because that principle contains within it the seed of the entire thought system. The fact that there is no order of difficulty in miracles is the same way of saying that all the problems in the world are really the same. The seemingly major ones and the seemingly minor ones. There's no difference among them. This can only be thoroughly understood when you recognize that there is no world out there. If you believe in the reality of the perceptual world, physical world, or separated world, then you must believe there are gradations. There are bigger things and there are smaller things. Our entire world, which really is to say the entire world of perception, is based upon orders and based upon differences. We all have concepts of large and small, fat and thin, beautiful and ugly, male and female, night and day, light and darkness, large problems, small problems, and on and on and on. Our idea of colors is also based on that. Different wavelengths of light, these are all inherent parts of the ego's world of separation. That there are differences in this world. Once we believe.
Oh, that's it. Is your paragraph just keep going?
Yeah, it goes on until however.
Yeah, ours get, well, our newer ones get indented there, so that's good.
Okay.
Any comments? Any thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, I had a thought and then it just flew out of my head.
Must be the mood.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's great. That's so interesting. All the different levels and all the different orders and preferences, and I got to have it this way or that way, and it's just all BS.
All the different books with different colors on the cover.
Right. No
Yeah,
hierarchy.
Yeah, I was thinking when you're reading that, I feel totally different. I mean, not just things seem different than each other, but I feel different than yesterday. I mean, I don't think I'm the same as yesterday, much less the day before. I mean, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but I'm not even the same every day. Something's always, happening, seemingly different. Yeah. Yeah, even I'm not consistent at all. As if Tim could be consistent. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Thanks, Rosemary.
Thank you.
All right, Bruce.
Yeah, what it says here, there is no order of difficulty in miracle. One is not harder or bigger than another. They're all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. So our difficulty, the miracle, is a shift in our perception of how we look at the problem. And whatever problem it is, there is no difficulty in the miracle. It's an expression of love towards that situation that we're having. It doesn't matter if it's what size it is. It doesn't matter what it contains. Miracle doesn't have any difficulty at all in changing your perception of it. It's only us that have to do.
So whatever maximal means, if I'm feeling anything less than maximal, then there's doubt involved. I don't know what maximal means, but I know I'm not feeling maximal right now.
Well, the miracle is an expression of love, an expression of a correction through love. So all the miracles expressions are of maximal through the miracle. I don't know.
That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And you're not doubting that today, are you?
I don't want to.
All right, very good. Good, thanks, Bruce. All right. Lisa, you want to read a couple? Do you have indented paragraphs, or do you have this paragraph that goes on forever?
Yes, I have indentions,
Okay,
indentations.
2 paragraphs then, please.
All right. Once we believe that the body is real, we will then believe that there are certain problems that are more critical than others. If a person has a sickness that is, quote, life-threatening, unquote, then that is a serious problem. If a person has a mild headache, then we say that this is not such a serious problem. There is no one in this world who does not fall into that trap. It also takes the form of asking the Holy Spirit's help for some problems and not others, or believing that he is too busy to bother with our inconsequential and silly problems, or believing that we can take care of this by ourselves. In truth, however, we are afraid of his solution, for that would mean the undoing of the ego. However, the purpose of studying A Course in Miracles is not to have us feel guilty because we fall into these traps. The whole idea of the Course is to let us know just how insane we are and how insane this thought system is, so we could change our minds about it. You cannot change your mind about something if you do not know it is there. So the idea of exposing the ego's thought system is not to make us feel even more guilty than we do, or more stupid than we may feel, but to help us realize that, in fact, we do believe this. So we then can change our minds about it. And this first principle really starts us off with a bang. You know, I was thinking as I was reading this that we have these things that trigger us in the world, and we think that's the problem. But it actually isn't even the problem. So if we're asking to get that resolved, the problem is that we have this world that we think that we're separate in. And so our problem is our mind. So the solution is our mind. So when we have a miracle, it's healing our mind. So then there's no problem. I mean, the things that we thought were the problems are not the problem. It's not that at all. It's our mind. So then everything gets healed when we have a miracle. I think that's what he means when he says, you know, it's all maximal, because it's total healing in that moment. I don't know if I said that right or not, but
I sort of get what you're saying. I was thinking as you were talking that when I was remembering when I first read that first miracle principle, I thought, well, I guess I'm never going to have a miracle then. Whatever it is, it's maximal, and I sure that's not going to happen. And then I was thinking of what Bruce was saying. It's not just that all miracles are maximal because they're expressions of love, and love is maximal. But so the ego is maximal in that sense too. I mean, all belief in separation from God causes all these myriad of maximal problems, never-ending problems, eternal problems that just keep going and going and going. I mean, the ego is as maximal as, or would like to think it is anyway, as the Holy Spirit's expression of love is. Maximal covers everything. Everything in form is a belief in separation. It's maximal in that sense. We're caught in this total package of separation. So to step out of that is to simply go back to what's truly maximal. There ain't no separation. That's why they're all maximal. There ain't no separation. I never quite thought of it that way. I don't hate the word as much as I used to. Yeah. Does what I said make sense, Lisa? Sort of.
Yes,
Oh,
it
okay.
does. It makes sense to me completely because that's kind of what I was trying to say. It's
Yeah, I thought so.
in the ego, all the problems are horrible. It's all out there. It's all, when we go back to the Holy Spirit, then the solution is the healing is all encompassing.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Lisa. Lynn Corona. Oh, you're on mute, Lynn.
Yeah, there's only one one problem, and it's only that I need to change my mind about my belief in illusions. So I do that by choosing the Holy Spirit. I have to do it over and over and over again, but this is all illusory. Every bit of it that's outside of our mind is illusory because it's not out there. We believe it's out there, and we believe it can affect us and cause us a loss of peace. But the fact of the matter is, it can't. And my willingness to be wrong, be mistaken about the reality of illusions is the only change that's really required. I choose a different teacher. I choose the Holy Spirit, and it's already all done. The Holy Spirit knows the illusions aren't real, knows none of this is reality. So that's where the peace comes really right away. But it's all just one thing that we're doing. It's just one illusion that we're learning to not invest in a sense, invest our belief in. We're investing in unreality when we do that. And this is a change, a shift from investing in unreality to investing in the reality that the Holy Spirit shows us, which is miracles. It's the evidence that we're learning from the Holy Spirit is miracles. I mean, that's how I see it working and why it's all the same. There's only one, one problem, one solution, one change, one. God, if it was more complicated than that, it would be a nightmare. Oh, I can only do this one at this time, and these are harder than the others. We have to learn that it's all the same. We're forgiving our belief in an illusion.
Thanks, Lynn. And I'm sure you've all seen, or if you haven't seen it, you should see it. City Slickers with Billy Crystal. And he goes out west and he's trying to be a cowboy, and he's on a ranch, and Jack Palance is like the guru cowboy, and he's trying to mentor Billy Crystal and how to be a real cowboy. And all he would do was go, there's just one thing. But he never told Billy Crystal what the one thing was. Drove Billy Crystal crazy. What do you mean there's just one thing? What is it? He wouldn't tell him. It's a really good scene. It's just one thing. Jack, this is Jesus. There's just one thing. There's just one problem. And the other thing I was thinking that what is maximal, and this is good to be aware of, I think. And it was really helped us in recovery. I remember being at a particular 12-step meeting, and we were looking at, people were sharing their stories, and there was this whole range, this hierarchy of how we had acted out. Some people stayed home and acted out, other people hit the street, bought drugs, whatever was going on. People did it externally out there. And so what we realized as we were sharing these stories, because some of the guys were feeling bad because they didn't go out and do stuff. Theirs didn't seem as dramatic. They didn't hit the streets and act out. They just stayed home and did it. but the pain was the same. The pain was maximal. The pain of believing in anything is going to save us from ourselves is maximal. The pain's maximal, that's for sure. In form, yeah, there's all kinds of forms, but the pain of being separate, the pain of believing that something external, certainly external from the Holy Spirit, and that inside us is the answer. Anything external, the pain is equally devastating. It's horrible. It's maximal for sure. And that realization, I mean, we're all almost forgotten into a one-upmanship, like who acted out the most, like who is the most dramatic and did the most drugs and did the best drugs and all that kind of stuff. Nah, it was all painful. Whether you stayed home and did it or you did it, acted out with other people dramatically. It was all terrible. It was terrible. And the pain was terrible. And it was that pain that drove us to look for an answer. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Lynn. All right. Let's read on. Beth, you want to read some, please?
And we are on what this means.
I hope so.
Okay.
Okay.
What this means then is that it is just as easy to heal a cancer as it is to heal a mild headache. It is just as easy to heal a threat of nuclear war as it is to heal an argument between two little kids, because they are all the same thing. They all stem from one center point, which is the belief in separation or the belief in guilt. The problems are never out there in the world, but within our minds. The things that we do in this world to alleviate pain are all done on the symptom level, which means they are all done on the level of form. One of the key principles in the course is the distinction that we are always asked to make between form and content. Course in Miracles teaches that there are only two basic contents in the world: God or the ego, love or fear, spirit or the body. There are only two basic perceptions in the world. One is the ego's way of looking at a problem. The other is the Holy Spirit's way of looking at it. You want to go on?
Yeah, one more, please.
Okay. What happens is that these contents then come in a myriad number of forms. When we say that the basic content in the ego's world is separation, then it is obvious to us just how many different forms this belief takes. Some things we call negative, like pain, suffering, death, etc. Some we call positive, which usually means that we get what we want, or that people are free from external suffering. But the issue is never the form, which is on the right side of the chart. The issue is always the underlying thought on the left.
And he's referring to that chart back in my book on page 5, where the world was on the right side of the chart. Any thoughts, Beth?
It always comes down to the choice. And the first sentence there, that's the part that I think takes a while to really swallow, is that healing cancer is the same as healing a mild headache. Because we've been taught to look at things as far as degrees, and certainly cancer and a mild headache are not on the same level if you look at things through the ego. But one of the things I really like about this, the course, is that it is very simple. It isn't, it seems very complicated in the beginning when you start reading the book. But when you really understand the premise, and it's funny, I was thinking about love being maximal. We're not learning what love is. So whether it's maximal or not, I don't really know what love is at this point. But I do know when I feel disturbed or something is disturbing me. I know that. That's very simple for me to sit back and say, am I upset about something? And if I am, I know exactly what to do based on what the course says. So these concepts, and this is the thing I think I'm kind of learning, is that the more I forgive or the more I let things go, these concepts seem to come in and make more sense to me. So I kind of see the correlation between forgiveness and then the understanding of what the book is saying. Because I'm going through some of the readings for the immersion class, just to get an idea. And I read all that stuff before, but now that I'm reading it with, several years of forgiveness under my belt, I feel that they are making way more sense to me. And what's happening though is it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that this is a very simple thing here. This is not, I never thought of myself as an intellectual giant. And when I first looked at the course, I thought, oh my God, what do I have to do to understand this? And the answer is forgiveness. Forgiveness opens the mind so that this information becomes a part of who you are, because it is a part of who you are. So it's almost like all the baggage is being pulled out, and then the truth is being revealed, and the truth is in the book. And so it's pretty amazing. So I don't know who was talking about you need do nothing. That to me is that's the most important, those are the most important words spoken in the book. You need do nothing. You really don't. Forgiveness, if you're disturbed, forgive. Look at it with Jesus, forgive, move on. Simple. But as you're doing it behind the scenes, as Myra says, it's above your pay grade. You don't need to know what it is. I'm okay with that. But behind the scenes, all kinds of stuff is going on in your mind, and it has to be, because the next time you read the book, it's clearer and it's clearer and it's clearer, and it's truly an amazing thing. And I can see how, if the world is just a classroom, it really doesn't matter what happens out there. If it's a nuclear war or a slap in the face, it's all still a classroom. And if you react to it, it needs to be forgiven. Move on. And so it's a very, very beautiful thing. And anyways, so I'm done. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Beth. I was having these images when you said, I have 3 years of forgiveness under my belt. And then, in karate, you get color belts. We're trying to get a black belt in forgiveness. No, we already got a black belt. We're just pretending it's a different color. So, yeah. Yeah. The willingness to even try it, for sure. And then try it again, and then try it again. And then the trust that builds on that, because we start seeing it works. Yeah. That's good. Thanks, Beth. All right. Let's see. Susie, you want to read a couple, please?
Sure.
Oh God, you got do you know about chapter 23, Susie?
No,
You don't want to know. Go ahead and read it. I won't tell you what it means.
I'm sure you will. What happens is that these contents then come in.
Oh, no, I think we're, you see, you don't even want to read it. We're in chapter 23.
Oh, in the text.
No. I mean, in the book, the opening line is in chapter 23. There is a section called.
Oh, okay. Let me see what. Oh, I see. Oh, I'm sorry. I see where we are. Okay.
Okay.
I got it now. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody's afraid of chapter 23. They don't even know it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still on 6. Okay. In chapter 23, there is a section called The Laws of Chaos, which is a very difficult section and one of the most important ones in the text. The Laws of Chaos describes the 5 laws that comprise the ego's thought system, which actually are the counterpart for the 50 miracle principles. You can tell which side Jesus is on because he gives 50 miracle principles and only 5 laws of chaos. The first law of chaos is the exact counterpart to the first miracle principle. It states that truth is relative and that there is a hierarchy of illusions. Some illusions are worse than others, or some illusions are better than others. This, again, is exactly what we are talking about. Once you believe that certain problems are larger than others, you must believe there are different levels of solution for the different levels of the problem. Certainly, somebody who is in the medical field knows that if there is a symptom, you do A. And if there is another symptom, you do B. And if there is a third symptom, you do A and B, or something else. They are all very specific things that we do to heal or solve the various problems that we believe we have. By the way, the Course makes it very clear that this does not mean that you should not do these various things, but I will elaborate on that later when it comes up with the miracle principles. Stop there?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's just like he's reading my life story. I want to know what to do. Here's a problem, do A, do B, or do both, right? So, but I love the whole conversation tonight. It is feeding my soul, where one of you precious folks said something like, if you have a question, then it's not, then you're in the ego, which just makes total sense now, right? So, I just get it as this is coming clearer. And this whole line right here was exactly what I was looking to do. And Kevin Wapnick's blowing it apart.
All right. Very
Yep.
good. Very good. Thanks, Susie.
Mhm.
So I just briefly talk about the first law of chaos is, if we realized it was a hierarchy of illusions, we'd be all right. Because we would know it was an illusion. And of course, this illusion is as made up as any illusion's made up, whether it's a headache or nuclear war. The problem is we think it's truth. There seems to be a hierarchy of truth. Your truth is different than my truth. Just ask me what I think, and then I'll ask you what you think. And then we'll see how it overlaps, but a lot of times we'll find out the differences too. So this idea that the truth is different for everybody, and we think it's real. We think that those differences are very real. If we knew they were illusions, all the other 4 laws of chaos would have never kicked in. So we're trying to get back to that original stepping stone outside of heaven. It was the tiny mad idea that we could be different than heaven. We could be, each of us be a different son of God. That your truth was different than my truth. Nah, it's all illusion. Once we know it's illusion, that's the good part. It's a hierarchy of illusions. It's not a hierarchy of truth. The other thing, I already forgot it again. I got rosemary-itis now. I'm sure I picked it up from her. So it was really good too. I knew it was good, but it's gone. It'll come back. Anyway, yeah. Let's read on. Erica, you want to read some, please?
Sure. The only thing that truly heals is undoing the belief that we are separate from God, which is where our problem of guilt comes from. As we will see later on, another way of saying what healing is will be joining. If we recognize that the only problem that exists is the belief that we are separate, this must mean that the only solution to all other seeming problems is to join. Another thing that will become apparent as we work with this material is that A Course in Miracles teaches that the way we define a problem automatically establishes how we resolve the problem. That is why it is very important in working with the course that you always keep in mind that it recognizes only one problem. And that is the belief that we are separate. If you say that the problem is anything else, then you are automatically saying that the solution will be something else.
One more, please.
Lesson 79 in the workbook makes the point that there is only one problem. Therefore, there is only one solution. The one problem is guilt, separation, or holding grievances. And the one solution is a miracle, forgiveness or joining. This first principle then really sets that up. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. Regardless of what we believe the problem is, all our problems can be solved the exact same way, merely by changing our minds about them. Yeah, I think that's the simplicity of the course. There's just one problem, one solution. It's hard to believe it and hard to practice it when you're in ego mode. But once you take a moment and join with God, you just see it. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's good. And that's true. And thank God that's true.
Right. Thank God, that's true.
So one of the ways, I think one of the things that trip us up, at least initially, the way the ego will run with any word, running with the word joining, because it's used a lot in the course. I mean, because ultimately, if we're already joined, why we got to join? We just have to realize we're joined. That's what joining is. Joining is simply realizing we're already joined by laying down all these grievances that we're hanging on to that are keeping us seemingly separate. It's the grievances that he's talking about in those 3 paragraphs that keep the real one problem, the belief in separation, keeps that hidden just underneath the surface. I think this is the problem, and this is the problem, and that's the problem, and you're the problem, and sometimes I'm the problem. But it's all about realizing that we're already joined as one son of God and asking for help to have that experience. So, yeah, forgiving too. I mean, we forgive when we realize there's nothing to forgive. We join when we realize we're already joined. When we heal when we realize there's nothing to heal. I mean, they all sound like little Zen sayings, but they're all true. It's everything the course is trying to tell us. Yeah. Anything about that, Erica? You okay
No,
with that?
just thinking, I mean, he also acknowledges that the way we define a problem establishes automatically how we're going about it, right? So it's all about forming content.
Good.
If I believe I'm upset, or I believe I see myself incapable because of something I heard in the past, maybe when I was a little kid, and I think that the problem is, that's the problem, I'm going to try to resolve it there. And maybe that's a start. And I think that's what, we're learning to with, parents and children. That's a start. That's going to take me to the right answer. At some point, I'm going to see that the problem was guilt. But I start by the form takes me to the content. So it's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the way back. So yeah, that's good. If we let it be the way back, instead of just stopping with that and defining it as the problem. So I mean, there's all these problems in the world, and then we think we got to be the fixers. I was thinking this the other day when Lynn was reading, I come as the salvation of the world, or I come to be the salvation of the world, however that title is. But the ego believes the same thing. I come to fix the world. If you only did what I think you should do, you'd be fixed. If I could fix you, and in some cases I think I can, then you'll be a better, I save you by fixing you. No, Jesus is saying it's just the exact opposite. I save you by stop condemning you that you need to be fixed. One of the big things I think in over the last years of psychological awareness is realizing there's nothing broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. Well, in time and space, there's a shitload of things that are broken. There's a mess of things that need to be fixed, but that's what time and space are for. So we get so preoccupied with fixing these problems, saving the world from all these problems we think we can have an influence on, and never getting back to we're already okay as the Son of God. Because as soon as we fix one thing in the world, it's like frogs in that game. Another, whatever it is, frog jumps up. Smash one frog down, another one jumps up. It has to. It's the ego's game. We have to keep fixing. We have to keep pounding down the problems. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Erica. Jane?
Thank you. Going back to joining, I think that in the beginning in the course, we think joining is people. We better have parties, or better, go to the library with friends or whatever. And when the forgiveness, the concept, the principle of the course of forgiveness is really realized and understood, then the physical part doesn't need to be addressed one way or the other. It just is. It's what it is. It's not worthy of denial. It's not unworthy. But there's a process. There's certainly a process in that. As Ken, when I first did Ken 100 years ago, he would always say, don't tell me you don't believe in illusions, because you do. And we had a friend at the Course in Miracles Center who would say, slam your hand with a hammer and see if you don't believe in illusions. And it's not something that we think about, we just don't think about it consciously, which that's what the Course is awakening us from the dream of. That yes, there are illusions, but we don't believe in them. So joining is part of that, of thinking that it has to be with a person. The joining is only within our minds. That's the only place it is. And as we progress in the course, it just becomes easier to realize that, to really realize that it's just in my mind, but it's not in the right part of my mind in the separation. It's in the wrong part of my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point. And certainly Jesus says that in many ways throughout the Course. In Song of Prayer, he says, put not forgiveness into an earthly frame. Don't make it about forgiveness between bodies. Well, okay, then what do I make it about? And then so this it always goes back to that level of confusion that Dave's been pointing out lately, that we have to move back to realize on a real fundamental level, whatever image we have of Jesus or the Holy Spirit, especially in terms of this experience in the mind, we actually believe they're separate from us. I mean, that's what we really need to join with. That's where the real problem still is. We think we're separate from, it's this unholy relationship we have with Jesus. We don't realize he and I are kind of operating on the same vibration, if you will, the same whatever energy source. I mean, this is where it needs to be healed. This is where it needs to be saved. This is where it needs to be forgiven, is between me and then we have to redefine these words. Healing takes place when you realize there's nothing to heal. Forgiveness, which just simply means I let go of believing I'm separate from you, and then I let go of believing I'm separate from God, from Jesus in this case, since he's the writer. I literally am willing to, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that feels like. It's causing me to doubt the whole mess, but I'm willing to let that go and let Jesus tell me something else. Oh, that's what one of the other things I forgot was this experience in the third step of forgiveness. It's not just like, there's a miracle and everything's wonderful. It's like we really feel loved. We let Jesus love us in that experience. Feeling loved by God, feeling loved by Jesus is really good stuff. And it hasn't stopped. We just let ourselves feel it. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I remembered one, Rosemary. Did you remember what you forgot yet?
No, it's still out there in the.
Still floating around.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll come back. Mine came back. All right, thanks. All right, thanks, Jane. All right, let's do one more or two. Maya, you want to read, please?
Sure. Help me find it. I've got, I think, the same edition as you.
I'm
Tim.
on page 12 in mine. It says, sometimes question, we deny things.
Got it.
Got it.
Sometimes we deny things and we think we have changed our minds already. Answer. As it says right at the end of the text, trials are but lessons that you failed to learn, presented once again. So where you made a faulty choice before, you can now make a better one. From chapter 31, section 8. Obviously, most of the time we have not totally undone all our guilt. And there may be relationships that we believe we have healed and resolved, and something happens a year later, and bang, all those same feelings come surging back. Everyone has had that kind of experience. This does not necessarily mean that we failed when we originally tried to work on it. What it probably means is that we went as far as we could at that point. And then at some later point, we were ready to take another step and heal a deeper layer of guilt. Then an opportunity presents itself and we find ourselves getting angry and upset, feeling hurt and victimized. And that is what tells us that we had not thoroughly let go of this belief. Because what happens now is that it becomes projected out onto this person. The ego would tell us that we should believe that we are failures. What the Holy Spirit would tell us is that now we are ready to take another step. That is really the whole thrust of the Course, to help us look at everything that happens in our lives as an opportunity for healing and forgiving something that was deeply buried in us that we did not know was there. And there are no exceptions to that principle. Do you want me to stop or go on?
Yeah, finish one more little paragraph, please.
In fact, where the Course's great power comes from is that it is so consistent and simple in everything it says. It really teaches us only one way to look at everything in the world. That is the way of A Course in Miracles, that everything that occurs is an opportunity for us to heal our minds. And it does not matter whether we get upset about some terrible event that we are reading about in the newspaper, or we get upset by a trivial thing that happens in our homes or our families, communities, or work situation. As far as thinking about something coming back, a problem that we thought we had released with a certain person, what it makes me go back to is that we're never upset for the reason we think. So even though it sounds like there's a zing in our minds that, oh, I'm back to that same thing. To me, that's like ego just saying you didn't solve it. Ego is just like raising its hand and saying, see, you didn't do it, did you? Or, you're not done. But we're not really upset for that reason anyway. It's always the separation. So however it seems like a recurrent theme, ego is going to come in and hit us over the head and say, you failed, you failed to resolve it. But that, to me, that's bogus. It's just we're never upset for the reason we think.
Anyway, right.
And then the other thing is, what about all that underlying unconscious guilt, that we're all carrying, thinking we destroyed heaven? Isn't that really what we're dealing with? Whether it's topic A, B, all the way to Z, we're never upset for the reason we think.
So I was thinking about everything you're talking about, especially the way he's phrased it in this section. And it reminds me of what Abe was talking about last Thursday, that and certainly Ken and Gloria have referred to it this way. There's an iceberg of guilt, and all we see is the tip of it. Well, if that works for you, great. I don't like that. It didn't work for me. But I mean, I can see where it could be helpful, because it seems like we're always dealing with incremental pieces of guilt. However, that it kind of may, for a lot of different reasons, the way I like to look at it, and the way I've heard Ken also describe this process, is like you were saying, when I'm in ego mode, I'm going to reach back and grab anything and pull it out and use it. Whether it's something from the past I've already worked on, or it's something new, it had nothing to do with those things anyway. It was always this underlying, I've thrown Jesus out the window and I refuse to let him love me right now. And I'm blaming it on either something from my past that I thought I worked on, or whatever's happening in front of me right this second. I'll use anything. And maybe in the past, quote unquote, I did work on it. Maybe I did have a holy instant with that. But it's certainly, when I'm in ego mode, I'll use it again. I'll use anything in a heartbeat. So that's the way I like to approach it, is like, yeah, I still seem to be carrying around this backpack of old hurts just in case I need one. I'll pull it out. I haven't quite let them go yet, but I certainly let them go when I was working on them. But then instead of just throwing them out the window, and a lot of times I do forget, like literally, I don't remember why I was upset. That's a good sign too, when you heard the right teacher. You can't even remember why you're upset. I'd be mad at Lynn, and then I can't remember why I'm mad at her. I know I had a reason. Now I can't remember it. What did she do? I want to bring it back up. I want to be like Arise. Oh, you again. Oh, I pulled it out. Oh, you again. Yeah. Thanks, Maya.
I'm starting to think that this whole notion that this big iceberg of unconscious guilt, it's just that's the ego's bread and butter. It's like, I'm starting to think that we really don't need to resolve or clean out that guilt. We just have to be willing to see that it's nothing, and not to do it alone. And so I'm thinking the iceberg is another kind of threat or, bogus thing that the ego is saying, well, you'll never get rid of all this guilt that made me, guilt is the house that the ego built, and it's just like,
It's all a house of cards, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's bogus boogeyman, just
So, yeah.
anyway, I don't know what others think of that, but that's kind of how I'm starting to think, that it's just not believing in it,
Yeah, great. Thanks, Maya.
Mhm.
Dave Dempsey, go ahead.
Yeah, I think too, we got to remember that this is the gentler way. And sometimes we can only go so far with that forgiveness piece, in the sense that at least I'm not seeing that person as my enemy anymore. I may not have made that leap of total oneness with them, but at least I'm not projecting my guilt onto them and using them for that anymore. Now, later on down the road, I'll probably have more work to do to get to that place, but to rip that Band-Aid all at once and say I'm one with you, let's face it, we're all hanging on to our egos. We all believe in the illusion. And I think the other point was too that, we share in the same ego too. And so sometimes we join in the ego, unfortunately, but you're going through the same pain I'm going through, And so we got to remember we're sharing the same ego, the same Holy Spirit, and we also share the same decision maker to make that choice to get back to the mind, But I think sometimes my best healings have come when I've joined with someone in the pain. And I said, oh my God, I have those same fears. I'm not different than them, you know? And that's that shared interest. And, you know, that's the part I think is that development of trust, when we start to let go of our belief in the ego more and more, and we spend a little more time with the Holy Spirit. It's gentle and it's slow, and it's kind of like boiling the frog. I think Jesus is boiling us like frogs. He starts us out in cold water, and he just slow. If you keep doing this, pretty soon, you know, you'll want to spend more time with me than with the ego. And so, because you're more happy. Look at, you're joyous and you're happy, you know, and we don't even know it's happening until one day we look back and go, man, I just haven't judged as many things as I normally do. You know, I'm different. You know, I have a different perspective. Not that really anything changes. It just seems like other things don't matter anymore. You know, they lose an importance to you, and they just go by. It's like you don't notice anymore. So it's, yeah, I think it's just a process that we just keep going with. But I can't forget that I'm sharing the same ego, and something, like I said, my biggest moments have come when I've shared in the pain, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm no different than you are, and you're no different than me. And that's that shared interest Ken talks about. And we're probably going to find it there before we find it in the forgiveness side of oneness, you know. So
Yeah, you know, the two major themes that Ken points out, that Rebecca's been pointing out in the last two Monday night classes in the manual for teachers. The two big things are, we have these shared interests. Yeah, and you know, in a certain way, we all share the desperate need to ego need to be separated, but certainly to begin to realize the price we're paying for that. That it's not that we're sharing in that pain, but certainly we're all feeling that pain. It's a shared interest of the ego to have that kind of pain, because it reinforces that we're trapped forever in that pain. And then we share the same way out of the pain. We share the same Holy Spirit. I mean, those are really the two shared interests. It's not just we share the ego or the Holy Spirit, but we share that we indulge in that pain that we feel when we're in the ego, and it's horrific. And just to admit that out loud to each other is gigantic. And hopefully have a way out of that, share a way out of that. 12 steps, certainly, Course in Miracles, certainly. I think the two biggest spiritual paths of the 20th and 21st century are 12-step recovery and A Course in Miracles. For that reason, it brings us to the awareness of how much pain we're in and how we're indulging in it. And then, God, there's a way out of that pain. Thank God there's a way out. And we get to share that with each other. Yeah.
you know, today I was with a buddy of mine that's in a wheelchair, and he's got muscular dystrophy, and he's losing the use of his one arm now, which he's had pretty much use of his arms, and now he's losing the use of that one arm. You know, he was telling me that he spent 2 days in bed. He just didn't want to deal with the world, and I just, you know, I told him, I said, man, you're having just the most wonderful pity party, aren't you? And he goes, well, why don't you, thanks for being so kind. And I said, well, if you're not going to pull your head out of your ass, somebody needs to. And so when we get to I had to take him for an eye appointment. So when we get there, he hits the remote on his ramp for his van so he can get out. And it goes, and it makes all this squealing, whining noise. And he goes, man, is that thing whining? And I said, oh, I thought it was you. And so when we got back in the van, I said, you know, all kidding aside, I said, I really thought about everything. You know, I feel his pain. I really do. You know, I try not to acknowledge it because I don't want to co-sign his bullshit. But I told him, I said, you know, here's something to think about. And I said, have you ever thought about forgiving your body? He goes, what? And I said, have you ever thought about forgiving your body?
Mm.
Because you're making that the source of all your pain. Mm. And I said, and I won't say anything more than that. I just think maybe that's something you should ask for some help with, you know? And we got back to the house and he goes, I guess I need to think about what you said, huh? I said, well, that's up to you. And I said, but what you're doing to yourself is whatever time you have here, you're certainly making miserable. And it doesn't have to be. You know, I said, you're not here for your purpose, you're here for God's. You just don't know what that is. And so, you know, we'll see where it goes, but I just didn't, you know, that whole in his pain, I could feel it, you know. I can't imagine what he's going through. Just slowly have your body stop working, you know. But, you know, I thought, and that was just, I don't know where that came from, to just tell him, maybe you should think about forgiving your body, you know. We'll see what happens, but yeah, kind of a different thing.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Jane, please.
I have always believed the Course in Miracles, when it talks about shared interest, is really talking about we all want to go home. That's the biggest shared interest that we have that we do not recognize. I've always thought to recognize that, yes, we all have a split mind. We all have a right mind and an ego mind, and that we have a decision maker. So I must have really misinterpreted that somewhere, because it always made me feel so good to think that, yes, everybody knows that they really want to go home. So I'm glad I'm getting more enlightened about what shared interests mean. Thank you so very much.
All right. Thanks, Jane. Bruce.
And I don't know if I heard it from Ken Wapnick or not, but also in the understanding of shared interest, I think he brought about the idea of if we harm anybody in any way, psychologically or physically, we are only harming ourselves. Now, if we could truly awaken to that understanding of our shared interest to the point of understanding who we're really hurting, the world would be a whole different place.
Now, it's another way to look at shared interest. I don't realize if I'm hurting you, I'm hurting me. I mean, that's the ultimate ego interest, is to do that.
Right.
Hurt ourselves.
And in the truth, our shared interest is realizing that we're hurting ourselves.
And not just physically, spiritual, but I was thinking when we hurt each other spiritually, that's the big one. Like if I don't carry my awareness that, like Dave's situation with the guy, that he's not his body, if I don't carry that into my interaction with him, you know.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, a lot of the Course, like on, I like the little deal on page 5. You know, it brings everything, the causes, all about the cause. You know, all these difficulties, all these problems. It's not about the problem, where the problem comes from, and that comes from the mind. Now we either choose the miracle, and then when we choose the miracle, we go back up into the decision-making part of our mind, and we forgive. What it is we either choose the situation as an opportunity of forgiveness, right? Or we choose the place of the ego and we take our problems and solutions to the world and fix things. Choose the miracle, you know? When you choose the miracle, you're shifting your perception to a correct way of thinking through forgiveness. That's the choice.
Yeah, kind of like what Erica was saying. We use it as a classroom, as a way back, instead of just getting stuck trying to fix the classroom. Make it a better classroom. Good. That's good. All right. We went over, but it was worth it, I think. Let's close with lesson 80. More on one problem, one solution. Let's see, lesson 80 on page 143. And we'll do paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3. So let's see, Sally, you want to read paragraph 1, 2, and 3, and we'll get quiet for a little bit, please.
My voice is giving me problems, so let me see if I can get through this or
Oh,
not.
there's only one problem, Sally.
I have a body.
No, you think you have a voice, but go ahead.
Oh,
We'll
that's
listen.
true. Yeah, I know my problem. I appreciate Dave saying, forgive the body, because I'm in the process of forgiving mine. So I appreciate that. Okay, close your eyes, everybody. Take a big breath and just relax. It's been a wonderful, wonderful group, wonderful lessons to learn. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. If you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it has been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact, and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. Your only problem has been solved. Repeat this over and over to yourself today with gratitude and conviction. You have recognized your only problem, opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. You have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. You have accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer. And you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. You are entitled to peace today. A problem that has been resolved cannot trouble you. Only be certain you do not forget that all problems are the same. Their many forms will not deceive you while you remember this. One problem, one solution. Accept the peace this simple statement brings.
Thanks, Sally. We'll get quiet for a little bit. And gently, gently. Very good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Tim.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you, Tim.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Nice seeing everyone. Have a good night.